This is the Soul-Filled Sisterhood podcast, and I'm your host, Nicole Burgess, licensed marriage and family therapist and an empowerment mentor for women. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute, nor is it to convey professional, psychological, financial, or medical advice. If you could use such services, please seek them out from someone you trust. Now here is today's episode. Episode 129. And before I dive into today's episode, I want to let you know that I have a brand new online workshop available for you to watch, absolutely free. It's called The 3 Ways Being a Good Girl Holds You Back in Business or Your Career, and What to Do Instead. This workshop is for you if you worry about what other people may think if you speak up in a meeting, or maybe if you decide to raise your rates in your business. This is also for you if you say yes when you really mean no. Or maybe you really struggle with thinking there is something wrong with you because every other woman that you know seems to just have her stuff together and it gets her to-do list done. But there must be something wrong with you because you just can't seem to get your to-do list done without feeling overwhelmed and stressed out. I invite you to head over to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/goodgirlways. It's all one word, to check out the new workshop. All right, here is today's episode. Well, my guest today is actually a returning one. I'm going to have a conversation with Laura Vaillancourt, and she is a licensed mental health counselor and a geriatric mental health specialist, and began her private practice in 2012 after working several years in hospital, skilled nursing facility, and dementia unit settings. She quickly recognized a need in the community for guidance when navigating difficult decisions in the world of aging and opened her private practice, elder care counseling, and guidance services. She has extensive experience as a consultant and coach for family caregivers and healthcare professionals across the country. She also offers counseling and care management to families that are in the midst of making difficult decisions related to their loved ones' cares and health transitions. Her passion and much more of her experience has been working with individuals and family members that have been affected by Alzheimer's disease and the other types of dementia. And before I open up this conversation with Laura, I just want to let you ladies know, I know some of you, and so does Laura, some of you have a estranged relationship with your parents or caregivers, and that's really where this episode stemmed from. There may be a lot of past hurts, even past traumas associated with it, which also can put a strain on your professional life or your home life. And so that is why we're having this conversation today. So let's get started. Well, welcome back, Laura. Thank you so much for doing kind of part 2, because you and I didn't really get into one of the areas that we briefly mentioned on the previous episode. And so I wanted to have you back today to share a little bit more about what does a woman do when they've got a parent that they've been estranged from due to past, maybe it's verbal abuse or physical abuse from that parent. And now all of a sudden their parents in this place of they've got dementia, they're diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and they're like, oh, you're my primary person to take care of me. So thank you for being on and talking about this kind of difficult topic.
Oh, my pleasure. It's just important. I just appreciate that you're having this conversation with me and of the sisters out there, because we can think that we're not going to be in this position, right?
Uh-huh.
and then we get a phone call.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You had talked to me about, like, you have gotten phone calls from clients that you're working with where they're like, oh my gosh, this person I literally haven't talked to for decades, maybe, it's 20, 30, 40 years. They've been named as the primary kind of medical person or, person that their medical staff is supposed to contact in case of emergencies. And they're like, I want nothing to do with them. So how do you support them? And I'll talk from the trauma perspective of what a person, also the choices they have, if or when their parent does that to them.
Good. No, this is and it's coming up more and more in my practice that I'm seeing anyways. So, I mean, as you can imagine, everybody is so individual and unique, and our histories are so complex. I guess what I want to say is there's just a variety of situations that you could imagine that might come up, and sometimes it might be as simple as, my parents divorced when I was little, and I just never really had contact with my mom or my dad, and now suddenly I was named as their power of attorney and I didn't even know it, and I got a call. Or something as complex as somebody that may have survived severe trauma or sexual abuse, and their parent is now relying on them to make decisions and provide care for them. Or another, I've had a couple clients where their parent has a history of mental illness, and they have been out of their lives for many years, and then something happened that took them to the hospital, and they're no longer able to live without support, and so an adult child gets pulled into that situation to help, with the planning. And so the emotions, as you can imagine, I mean, this is just, there's layers of complexity, right?
Yeah.
Because not only is the adult child's life completely being flipped on its head, because most of these folks have been independent their whole lives. And often they had to grow up quick and move out quickly, and but now they're in a position of not only having to make decisions for their health care and all of those practical things, but it's this return of this old possibly unfinished business that is there, and that emotional what happens. So I'd love to hear a little from you, Nicole. Like, can you talk a little about what happens to the body and to the emotional body when there's a return of exposure, I guess, to a perpetrator or a parent that might have been.
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, when I'm working in my clinical business and people are telling me, they had a very severe mentally ill parent raising them, and they finally have, kind of cut the ties from them, or they had an abusive parent and again, cut ties from them. And if they were to get that call, I'm like, you have the right to say no. First
Set
and foremost.
Boundaries.
Yeah. It's like, just because they named you doesn't mean you actually have to do anything about it, because
That's a good point. I want to just emphasize that too, Nicole, that just because you're named a power of attorney on a legal document does not mean you have to accept that role.
Correct. Because part of that, like you're alluding to, is it can be a very traumatic thing. If there's truly unfinished business, in the sense, like maybe you attempted to kind of work things through with that abusive parent or that severely mental ill parent, and they never got treatment, they chose to continue to blame you for the abuse, they made it your responsibility, that wasn't emotionally safe, nor it may still not be emotionally safe for you. Because often what will happen when there's more illness being tapped into, we know that some people that have dementia or Alzheimer's can become even more grumpier and or violent.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just not safe. And it's like, if they were already abusive, it's like, you don't need to put yourself back into that situation. And I get our society kind of says, well, yeah, but you're responsible for them. The reality is, no, you're not. You are truly an adult, and you've got your own decisions to make on that. If you were able to work through some of those things previously, beautiful. If you're like, I think we can even go deeper, or they have softened the parent who is asking you to help them with all their medical stuff and where they are right now, if there is a softness, if they're asking for forgiveness, if they're taking ownership, I think that's a very different story. But if there is not, and I've worked with families, this has been a few years back, where they're like, yeah, my family, my dad, my mom never ever took responsibility for the abuse that they had caused or had done, and I don't feel safe with them. Like, then you don't actually need to take care of them. They will have to figure it out. Their choices, their consequences, and that is the bottom line of it.
Because I agree.
You don't need to disrupt your entire life because of their poor choices they made, because of their illness that they truly never got treated, that they continue to blame everybody else on. It's like, no, you made it. And the old saying is like, you made the bed, you get to lie in it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. I was going to add too that you also, I don't think you need to make a decision quickly.
Correct.
And I think there's often pressure to do that, especially if there's a medical crisis or something going on. It's okay to take your time and really think about this. Meet with your therapist, or again, talk to a care manager. Because the other piece of this is and I think a lot of people don't understand this, but if you are the decision maker, if you do have power of attorney, it doesn't mean that you have to do all the work either.
Yes.
You can hire, if you're able, if there is funds that have that, if you have access to those funds, then you can hire professionals to be doing a lot of that work.
Good
and
point.
Then reporting back to you. So when you and I are talking about boundaries, it's like there is a way to be involved and have some clear boundaries for yourself.
Yeah. Because again, it can be truly re-traumatizing, right? Where again, you may be sick more often. That's how it'll impact the body often, right? You get stomach aches, headaches. You may have a reoccurrence of a depression episode. All kinds of stuff can happen due to old stressors coming back up, old memories coming back up, just traumas returning. And even though you've worked through them, there may be just all of a sudden, like you get transported back because this is like the first time you've talked to this person in decades. Right. And you're just like, oh my gosh, now they're saying they need me? What? They're making me responsible for them? Oh my gosh, what? Yeah. So being mindful of just really taking care of yourself.
And the other thing that I'm thinking of as you're talking to, Nicole, is how it doesn't always feel like it's on your terms, right? When you get a call out of the blue and there's this crisis and they're asked to be involved, it might be different if rekindling or approaching this relationship was on your terms.
Yes.
But when you're being reached, whether it's the parent themselves that are reaching out or a healthcare professional, has found you and is reaching out. Yeah, I think for me, just overemphasizing that you have a choice. And in my experience in the healthcare field, the family dynamics are so vast and varied. And I guess I can only speak for myself. I truly do not hold judgment because I get a lot of families that will apologize to me and say things like, I know I should be more involved, but I just really shouldn't, I really can't. Or there's a lot of guilt associated because of this perceived expectation that you as a family member are supposed to do this or that. And as a healthcare professional myself, I am here just to validate your experience and say that I always support that boundary. And you don't even have to explain, to me. I get it. And our role is to support the whole family. And so how can we get your parent the support they need while also giving you the safety and autonomy in the role that you choose to have?
Yeah. Because the reality is, right, as the adult child, that's the key. You're the adult, and your parent has been an adult for many, many years. So as an adult, it's your task, your kind of job to set up things for yourself and not make it the responsibility of your children. You had them, but they're not responsible for you as you age. That's part of truly growing up. Yes. But if you're saying, well, you're responsible for me now, I had you, it's like, that is not true.
That's such a good piece. I want to throw something else out at you, Nicole. One of the things that we often see with types of dementia is that on one hand, I will have families come to me and say, my grandma has always been the sweetest woman her whole life, and now she is cursing like a sailor and getting agitated and and we see the opposite where they will say, you have no idea, my relationship with my father was horrific. He was angry, he was closed off, he was abusive even. And now that he has dementia, he is friendly, he is kind, he can get emotional about things, he's appreciative. It can be. So what I wanted to throw out to you is, what are your thoughts about that? Like, sometimes I can see it being an opportunity for healing because a person is getting to know their parent in a way they never were able to before.
Absolutely.
And then other times not. But I could see that there would be a lot of confusion, if I was the adult child having this history of trauma possibly, and now my parent is being kind and sweet, and
you may be angry.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, that would be a really common emotion that could come up is anger. It's like, how dare you now? And again, it's part of the disease of the brain, right?
Exactly.
Where something else is switched on or off for them. So if your grandmother used to be all soft and sweet and compassionate and now she's swearing up and down, it's just, okay, grieve the loss of the grandma you knew so that you can get to the place where it's like, this is grandma as she is now due to the disease. And if it's flipped, and I've heard this similar, like with you're giving the example about the dad, it's really confusing. And it's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to take it slow. It's okay to ask the health professionals. Again, if you've got that power of attorney, like what you were saying, Laura, like, take it slow, get some information from the medical professionals of kind of like what has been their attitude, how have they been treating others? Because that's, the way I was treated, they were not nice or kind. They were very aggressive, mean, abusive. So you can get some details without having a ton of interaction at all with the person. But if you do choose to kind of explore it, again, you get to call like how far you want to go and where you don't want to go. Those boundaries get set again. And if you notice your dad is more soft and more compassionate, then maybe you can bring up some of those things. They may or may not remember a lot of it, but if they do,
depending on that, their diagnosis. And I think that just like you said, really, educating yourself about the diagnosis. So one of the things that I've been doing is throwing that word dementia out there. And it's really important for people to understand that dementia technically isn't a diagnosis. And a lot of doctors will list that as a diagnosis, but there are types of dementia, and that, many types, like Alzheimer's disease or vascular dementia or frontal temporal lobe dementia or Lewy bodies. There's so many types. And it's so important to know the type that someone has because they all have different characteristics. And so it's going to help you understand, again, grandma getting agitated and upset and cussing and swearing. If we know the type of dementia she has, then it's going to explain a lot. As to, is this characteristic of the type of dementia? Are there medications that can help her calm down and relax so she's not in a state of high stress all the time? Or, so again, that education piece about the types of dementia, I think, is really important as well.
And I'm glad you made that distinction because I was not aware of all the different types that are available.
Most people aren't.
So that is really helpful.
Or a lot of people get that Alzheimer's label, and there's many types. The other thing to know that's interesting is you can have more than one type of dementia. So it can be pretty common actually for people to have Alzheimer's and vascular dementia. And so just knowing that alone is helpful, not only in what to expect with certain behavior, but also being able to look at the prognosis, what is the decline going to look like and how quickly might we see it? So we know with Alzheimer's, it's a slow, steady decline over time. With vascular dementia, it's stair-stepped. So you'll be going along fine and you'll have a stroke, you'll drop. And then sometimes you'll recover a little, but then you'll go along fine. You might have another stroke. And so it's a stair step.
Okay.
And when we know that, then when we see certain changes occurring quicker than the type would suggest, then we know that we need to look deeper and address any concerns that might come up.
So, ladies, I want to give you a heads up. Again, I'm going to link Laura and I's previous conversation in here too, because there's great tidbits there. But more than anything, if you grew up with a parent, whether it was addiction issues, severe mental illness, they were abusive, there was a lot of trauma, make sure you are definitely getting support during this process if you choose to move forward with it. And like what Laura had already said earlier in the episode too, that you can also hire it out depending on what the financial situation is and what other support systems that are available in the area that you live, that you're not needing to do all of this. If you're like, okay, I'm deciding to take on this role and I'm not going to do it all by myself, know that more than anything, if there's things that are unprocessed for you, make sure you seek out counseling, therapy, something for that support, or go to a support group type of thing, or reach out to some family and friends to say, wow, I just need somebody to talk with. Not that you're going to seek them out for professional help. If you need that, go get that, because family and friends can't do the professional piece, but just somebody to lean in on. This is really, because it's a lot. And that's part of why we did a part 2. Just to kind of make some distinctions versus, if you kind of had a good, healthy relationship with your parent, now you're also still going to process your emotional stuff. But when you didn't have that, there's some extra things that may need to happen for you to make sure you're being taken care of.
Absolutely. I will add, if the financial support isn't there to hire out a care manager, to manage all of the day-to-day, when somebody qualifies for Medicaid, you will be assigned a Medicaid case manager.
Okay.
And case manager. And so lean on that person to be doing some of the day-to-day type stuff, whether that's making sure they're getting their needs met at wherever they're living. I think, again, recognizing who the team is. And again, that team, think of it as the bigger circle is doctors, financial planners, attorneys, care managers. And again, if Medicaid is involved, then you've got the Medicaid case managers. Lean on those team members to provide the support that they are there to provide, instead of feeling like you have to do it all on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious, Laura, I'm totally going to do a pivot at the end of this, and then I'm going to share your information so the ladies have access to it again. But for all of this, again, your passion is definitely clear. It shows through. Who in your life, who has or is continued to be kind of an inspiration for you?
Oh, yeah, you got me, Nicole. Well, what I would say, I have a couple people that have come into my lives at just the right time, mentors, if you will. They haven't necessarily been in long-term contact with me, but I know that I was really influenced by a woman in Seattle. She was actually one of my grad school instructors, and her name is Lisa Mayfield. If she's going to listen to this, she'll know. But she also is a therapist and a counselor, and created a very successful care management company up in Seattle, Washington. And it's called Aging Wisdom. And she has just popped into my life at just these key moments. Again, we haven't had this long ongoing, but just these really key moments where I'm making important decisions about this work that I love and what direction to go in. And so I've really, really appreciated her. And Of course, I have to say that my parents, I know that
Mm-hmm.
sounds so cheesy, but it's
Nope.
true.
Cheesy's good. Cheesy's good.
Okay. My dad, first of all, is just kind of he's kind of an outlaw type.
Mm-hmm.
He's an ex-biker, ex-con, but he's a Vietnam vet, and
Mm-hmm.
his devotion and dedication to his people, veterans and
Mm-hmm.
women who have been in domestic violence situations. And he has really dedicated his life to supporting his peers. And I was so fortunate to grow up witnessing this. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that it has just truly made such a difference in who I am and
Mm-hmm.
our role as being human beings on this planet, and
Mm-hmm.
supporting each other. And then my mom, who was a nurse, and I talked about how she would take me to work with her, and she's just so compassionate and caring. She truly has a healing spirit. And
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes when I'm in a good mood, I think I got the best of both of them. So, yes, thanks
I
to
love
them.
it. Well, it is interesting though, right? And I love that the people that, whether it's your parents or your friend or colleague,
Mm-hmm.
that it's like you find inspiration in things that they've done,
Yeah.
but it helps carry along. It's like, that's right.
Yeah.
That's why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I love what I'm doing. But when we have that inspiration, it makes sometimes those stressful days or hard moments easier to move through them versus getting stuck in them.
Yes. I
Yeah.
love that, Nicole. Yeah.
Well, ladies, if you want to get a hold of Laura or find out more of what she does, what her services are, what she offers, you can go out to eldercarecounselor.com. And again, I'm going to have it on the show notes. She also has a social media group, which is Get in the Lifeboat. It's an online support group. And then she's got her Facebook page as well, Elder Care Counselor. And I will have those links in the show notes as well. So, Laura, again, I just want to say thank you so much for coming back on and doing kind of part 2, because we ran out of time in part 1. So I just appreciate you coming back on and taking the time.
Oh, thank you, Nicole. Any opportunity to help support our caregivers out there is really just such a blessing for me.
To sign up for my new workshop, 3 Ways Being a Good Girl Holds You Back Professionally in Your Business or Your Career, head over to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/Good Girl Ways.